Birmingham wasn't even incorporated during the Civil War. The monument was actually to some regiment of Confederate soldiers somewhere else nearby. But of course, Birmingham became huge in the civil rights movement. But the monument placement predates it at least by 60 years. But again, it's a chess game. There's already 3 monuments no longer there that are in the film. Yet I do think that even with the monuments gone, the story still remains relevant for a long time to be. Not only do I think that some of these monuments will remain where they are for quite some time. I mean, we've seen a lot of them being removed. A lot of protesters taking matters in their own hands, or mayors who are just quickly swayed to just to keep the peace and guarantee the safety of the people, who all of a sudden remove monuments that had been there and had been challenged for God knows how long. But there will be ones that stay for quite some while. I don't think Monument Avenue, for example, is going to be completely empty in the next few weeks. Even though the mayor said so, there's I think a local circuit judge that now has barred removal of these monuments for the time being. And even if they're all gone, it's about what's underneath it. It's a system. It's a way of thinking. It's not just monuments. It's also the names of schools and streets, and just a general attitude that needs to be discussed and changed. And what I think and hope for the film is that it can be an educational tool in that sense, and a conversation starter. And I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from academics who want to use it in their history classes, in American history, African American history, Civil War history, Southern studies.
And so that leads me into the next question, because I think film is such a powerful medium to tell these type of stories. Why do you think film is superior to, say, a written article in conveying what these people really think and feel about these monuments?
Well, it's very intimate, it gets you there. It's like we did the dirty work of traveling all over the place and talking to people that you wouldn't normally have access to. Most people wouldn't dream of going to Charlottesville to these protests. Sometimes things get dangerous, or going to the headquarters of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. That was, even for us, that was a challenge to get there, and so you are in a position to witness a unique interaction, if you will. And there's, for example, also a scene in a derelict African American burial ground just outside of Richmond, and we were just trying to find our way through all the poison ivy and broken headstones in what was basically a jungle, with one of the volunteers of that cemetery who just only rely on volunteer work to try to uncover the graves of 14,000 people who are buried there, even though the adjacent Confederate cemetery, it's pristine, it's kept meticulous with government money that actually also should take care of the African American cemetery, but isn't. If you then follow this person who is trying to look for the graves of her grandparents, who she hasn't been able to discover yet, and just being able to look in their faces, hear the way they speak, it lets you sympathize and empathize with people's stories in a very close way. Mm-hmm. And I think in the end it's about sharing those things. We managed to go there and share it with other people who can take something away from that. And we are very visually oriented, And I think sharing these experiences is what's very much needed right now to, to be part of that conversation.
Tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now, because I know you've even had another film that you've pretty much finished making, right?
Well, there's another one out, which in a way is sort of a companion piece to this one. That actually was an assigned, like a commissioned work from Princeton University that I did with a couple of scholars, philosophers, and anthropologists. It's called The Toxic Rains of Resentment, and it's basically an interview film with world-renowned scholars like Wendy Brown and Alexander Nehamas and Peter Sloterdijk in Germany, who it's a very academic level exploration of this concept of resentment and how it fuels politics and culture nowadays in a global way, actually. Whereas Monumental Crossroads is a very experiential film and sort of, I don't know, grassroots. You talk to common people. This is like coming in from the other direction, but in a way, it talks about the same subject, and it's been recently released into the educational market, and it's funny to see how they match so well. And we're currently working on sort of a Dutch version of Monumental Crossroads, which was also a commissioned film. People in the Netherlands, I told before that my early impetus was to go chase this story about the monument's removal, to tell something to a Dutch audience about our own heritage and traditions that are contested. Yet I dropped that idea completely once I really got into the subject, and I was in the South traveling, thinking this is a story I need to do on its own merit. And luckily, it's now finding an audience. It's resonating with an academic audience, and we have some civil rights organizations also who are interested in it. But in the Netherlands, they don't really care for this film particularly because it's too specific. You need to actually know what it's about. You need to have certain knowledge to understand the film properly. So people who did see it said, shouldn't you make a Dutch version of it, with about our own monuments and about our own history. So I thought, actually I'd like a second shot at it. Also, not to be chasing events all through this huge country. I mean, we did 6,000 miles, I think, on this road trip through the South. Of course, the Netherlands is only a tiny country, but I felt like, let's get a different approach on this film. Take our time and be more contemplative. And then, of course, the recent protests happened and, spilled over to Europe. And all of a sudden, we're chasing monuments being defaced and torn down again. So I'm in a bit of a monumental Groundhog Day. But it's an interesting and now very relevant new film that we're doing. And I'm excited to see, what it can bring to a Dutch audience this time.
Tell people where to find you, where to find your work. I know Monumental Crossroads is on Amazon Prime. Right. Tell them your website, how to follow you.
Monumental Crossroads has its own website, monumentalcrossroads.com. It's on Canopy, on VOD channels through iTunes and Google Play and Amazon. And for the summer, we have put it on Amazon Prime as well, so people can watch it for free. And of course, there's also the educational licensing to institutions that can also be found on that website. My other films you can find on our production company website, which is Frontal frontalfilm.com, but with double A, because it's actually spelled in Dutch. So it's frontalfilm.com. Well, if you want to reach out to me, you can also do that through that website. I'm not much on Twitter or any other of these things, but you can find my email right there.
And just a little closing question. What do you hope that your films will ultimately do? What kind of legacy do you want to leave through your work?
I want to be put on a pedestal.
There you go. There you go.
I think it's very powerful if you can affect social change through film. And I've always liked film a lot. I think it's beautiful how you can, be transported into whatever kind of stories, whether it's a fiction film, even a Disney film, or, a real important documentary. But I always also wanted to contribute something to society. And, being trained as a philosopher, I always felt the need to express myself, to engage in the public debate on societal issues, and marrying those two in social issue documentaries. It's a beautiful place to be. I get to explore things that I find interesting and relevant, and I can put in my time to create stories that will help others, learn something, see other perspectives, or use it as a tool to effectuate change. And well, if I can do that on a number of occasions, then I would be very happy.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Tim Van Hoff, you guys go look him up. Look up the film Monumental Crossroads. You can also go on Amazon Prime. He said through the summer, Monumental Crossroads. Also in the comments, we'll put links to all of his work and the Monumental Crossroads website. Go ahead and hit subscribe. This is Meritocracy. Carrie Lee Merritt. Thank you for being with us today.